Welcome to Math 121. This is the first video of notes on chapter 1. So the first 6 chapters are very basic mathematics that we're going to review, and I would recommend that you not use a calculator, as you will not be allowed a calculator on your exam. So the very first problem is, what's the digit in the hundreds place? Well, this right here is the ones. This is the tens, this is the hundreds, this would be the thousands, 10,000, 100,000. So this right here is the hundreds place. What digit's in the tens place? That would be the 3 would be in the tens place. The thousand period is anything that we read the word thousand off of. So this would be 3,426,552. So what digit is in the millions place? This is our million. How do we write this in words? Well, pretty much exactly as we say it. 171,052. There's no and in any of the words except when you have a decimal point. This one we're reading it as 41,372,966. Now we're going to write the number 2,254,000. So that would be 2,254,000. There's no thousand, so we have to put our zeros there to hold the thousand place. Division, I think, gets complicated because we have so many different ways to write it. So we can write 14 divided by 6 like this. We can write 14 divided by 6 with the fraction bar, or we can write 14 divided by 6. So here we usually use this method when we're actually solving it. So I'm going to write it over here. Six goes into 1, doesn't. 6 goes into 14 twice, so I put my 2 right above the 4. 6 times 2 gives me 12. Subtract that. Put a decimal point here. Bring down my 0. Put a decimal point here. 6 goes into 23 times, which is 18. Subtract, and it's going to be a repeating pattern. So I put the little bar over the 3 to show that my answer is just going to keep repeating as 3. 19 divided by 1 is really written like this, which is the same thing as 19. This right here, 234 divided by 0 is undefined. if we put it in this notation, (234) times what gives me 0? There isn't anything, and that's why it's undefined. This problem cannot be solved. Rounding seems to be a problem that never goes away. So here we have 4,691, and we're rounding it to the nearest 10. So this is ones, this is tens. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a line right after the tens. I look at the digit right next to the line. If it's a 4 or lower, this becomes a 0. If it's a 5 or higher, we add 1 to this and this becomes 0. So since this is a 1, we round it to 4,690. When we're rounding to the nearest 100, I'm going to put my line right after the hundreds, and I'm just looking at this one number. So since it's a 5 or higher, we add a 1 to this, so we get 4,700. Round this to the nearest 10. My line goes in between my 1 and my 4. I'm just looking at the 4. 4 is not higher than a 5, so we just do 7,010. Rounding to the nearest 100. This is a 1, so it doesn't bump it up, it just becomes 7,000, and we round to the nearest 1,000. And draw my line here, looking at that number, so this just becomes 7,000. Round to the nearest 10. This is a 4 or lower, so I'm not going to add 1. So I just have 910. Round to the nearest 100. This is a 4 or lower, so I'm just going to have 900. Round to the nearest 1,000. My line would actually be here because there's a 0 out here. A 9 is a 5 or higher, so this gets added to a 1. And these are all zeros. Now, rounding is different than front end rounding. Front end rounding is where we just take the first number and everything else behind it is 0. So here, we're first going to estimate. So I have 2754. Let me see, I have a little bit of glare. Does that work better? 68 and 78. So I'm going to estimate 27. I'm going to estimate to be 30. 54, I'm going to estimate to be 50. 68, I'm going to estimate to be 70. And 78, I'm going to estimate to be 80. And then I'm going to add them down. 8 and 7 is 15, and 5 is 20. And 3 gives me 23. And then 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 is 0. So that's my estimate. Now my actual, 27, 54, 68, 78, 11, 19, 27. Carrying my 2. So now I have 4 and 5 is 9. 9 and 6 is 15. and 7 is 22. So my estimate was 230, my actual is 227. They're in the ballpark, so I'm happy with that. So I'm going to estimate my subtraction here. So I'm going to estimate 87 as 90. And I'm going to estimate 31 as 30. This is front end rounding, where I take everything and just round the first number, and everything behind it then is 0. 90 minus 30 gives me 60. That's my estimate. My actual, 7 minus 1 is 6. 8 minus 3 is 5. So my actual is 53. My estimate is 60. Here, when we're asked to identify the base and the exponent, the 11 is the base and the 3 here is my exponent. So my exponent is telling me how many times I'm multiplying the base. So this is telling me multiply the 5 by itself 2 times. 5 times 5 is 25. This radical sign, if there's no number right here, it's an implied 2. We call that the square root of 25, and it's the inverse function of squaring something. So this is saying what number times itself gives me 25, and that would be 5. What number times itself gives me 81, and that would be 9. Now we're getting into our rules of PEMDAS. Parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide as you find them left to right, then add and subtract as you find them left to right. So for our first one, I'm going to do my exponent. 2 squared is 4, plus 4 minus 1. So now I'm all the way down to here at adding and subtracting. So I add and subtract as I find it left to right. So 4 plus 4 is 8 minus 1 gives me 7. So here I'm going to do my parentheses. So I have 6 divided by 2 times 2. So now I am going to multiply and divide as I find it left to right. So 6 divided by 2 gives me 3. 3 times 2 gives me 6. I'm going to do my exponents first. So 2 squared gives me 4, times 1 squared gives me 1, divided by 4, plus 0 divided by 6. So now I'm multiplying and dividing as I find them left to right. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 1 plus 0 is 1. So first I'm going to look at this and say, okay, here's my division. So I am going to multiply and divide as I find it left to right. 12 divided by 4 gives me 3. So this gives me 3. So now I have 1 plus 3 and that gives me 4. We have our divisibility rules, which I'll do in the next video.